Welcome. You are now listening to Click Click Play. Please enjoy.
Fight!
Nobody can hear me, so I'll say it again. Welcome to the greatest podcast in the world. Joined by the greatest people in the world. Jordan Reese.
Woo!
Jesus Christ, is that God?
How are you doing, Jordan?
Oh, that's God.
All right, Jordan, how's it going?
I'm right. Are you okay?
Yeah, let me turn you up a little bit. You're a little quiet. There we go.
It's not like me.
I know. Just turn it down a little quieter, then we can't hear you at all.
Your voice is really nice, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I sat on my balls in a funny position earlier, and it. I've been speaking like this ever since.
All right,
I was
don't
going to
bother.
ask if Dave was under your desk.
Oh. Anyway, let me.
Fighty, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm getting some echo on your voice there, Jordan.
Oh,
Oh.
maybe you're sending your voice through GoToMeeting as well.
Should we mute that? There we go. How's that?
Right.
Hey, there we go.
Fuck yeah.
How have you been,
Yeah.
Flighty? Flighty Broad is here.
I'll turn
Hi,
that off.
everybody. I've been all right. I slept all day, which is my favorite thing to do.
10 past 10 at night, Flighty.
Say again?
It's 10 past 10 at night here.
It is 3:10 p.m. here, which doesn't make it any less
Wow, it's a bit
weird
better.
for you morning larks out there.
So yeah, it's so you're welcome. I'm BiggusBennus. This is the Click Click Play episode 68 we're on. The last episode didn't actually go up. Nobody noticed, I don't think, but it'll go up after with this show. So you'll have two Click Click Plays to catch up on if you've missed them. Ah, so
That's good. That's good to know, Ben, that you didn't fucking bother posting the 2.5 hour podcast that I put
nobody
together.
watches it. No one listens. Well, people,
Yeah.
if they watch it on YouTube. It's just there. But yeah, unfortunately, Andre just randomly sent us a message saying, "Oh, I'm not gonna be on," which is great. He sent that about 30 minutes ago. So yeah, no Andre, no Mellum. He's in the audience, I think. So
Where the fuck is Mel? I feel like I haven't spoken to Mellum in since 2017. And to be fair, he's probably my favorite one of all of you.
Oh,
So where the
No
fuck
That's
is-
offense.
fair, though. That's
No
fair.
offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really spoken to Mellum that much. I think he's kind of chilling away from streaming for a bit, taking a bit of time off.
I thought you two were like a really cool little streaming duo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Am I
Maybe I said something.
Am I touching on a nerve?
Yeah,
Yes.
we had a massive argument. No, it's I think his room as well is very, very, very hot, so he doesn't like to stream much in there, which is
I
why
bet he's out on his boat all the time because,
Yeah.
he's a Viking and all that.
he's very Norwegian. He's got a boat. Speaking of him being very Norwegian, Jordan's being very British. He's drinking a Stella there.
Hey man, Flighty will attest to this. Stella in the US is like a posh beer.
It is. It's really
Yeah.
weird.
Oh,
it's
do-
really weird.
Do you know what they
Power-
call?
the power of marketing.
Do you know what they call it in the UK?
What's that?
Dick juice.
Oh no, they don't try and make Flighty buy some. It's called
Yeah, no.
Wife-
Stop advertising.
it's called wife beater. 'Cause, it's the type of thing that awful people would buy.
Oh, womp womp.
Donk says.
In my defense, I don't need it to beat my wife.
You don't. Oh Jesus. Don says a fine Belgium lager.
Hmm.
Oh wow, amazing. So Jordan, what have you been up to? I spoke to Flighty last week on the podcast. What have you been up to?
Well, in the UK right now, it's been lovely weather still. I think it's about to change. Apparently this week we're going back to our normal kind of doom and gloomy weather. Football is not coming home, Ben. Sorry to tell you.
Never mind.
I'm not sure like what the time difference is wherever you are. But as things stand, football is not coming home.
No, I might be coming home. I'm looking in the next year to be moving back to the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
shit.
Aww.
No,
What's
I
wrong with Spain? Is it because that woman pushed you off the train?
that kind of added to it. No, it's just I miss my creature comforts and all that.
Aw.
It's great, but like bureaucracy here is just ridiculous. Like every November or like twice a year, the tax man will just go into my bank account and take like €200. They don't
God,
they don't send me a letter or anything, and they're like, oh, now you need to go over here to go and find out why they took all that money out of there. I'm like, what? Just don't take money out of my bank account without even warning me or saying why. And they're like, oh, you needed to go to this random office in this random city with this random piece of paper or six pieces and get 5 stamps on them. And yeah, it's
When are you thinking of coming back then?
probably next summer.
Why didn't you come before that? Because it'll be Brexit in like April time, and then I'm not sure I could lay back in. if I'm
Yeah.
honest.
Well, that's fine. You know, if you can't, I'd quite like to go to maybe Ireland as well. But I don't know. Right.
Ireland.
Brexit. Very lucky if Brexit's. Don't want to know about me getting pushed off a train. Oh. Just yeah. People here. I
Taliban.
get angry all the time on the train here because people are just rude. I think anybody. There's no Catalans in the chat. Well, yeah. People living here who live here are really fucking rude. And I was on a train. It was packed and I was near the door, and when it pulled up to a station, there were people on the platform already, so I couldn't get off to let people off. But somebody was walking behind me, and there was someone was trying to get past in front of me, so I was like, I'm just going to stand here and let them go either side of me. And then a woman walked up and she like literally shoved me with both her hands, like just pushed me out of the way and then stormed off and pushed past other people that were on the platform. It was like
Jesus
such a
Christ.
sense of entitlement that it's like, how dare you stand near me and I'm going to physically push you and shove you in your stomach. Oh,
Did you push her back?
I was so, if it was a man, because I wouldn't hit a woman,
Oh,
but I
sexist.
would have chased him down there and beaten him if I was a violent person.
I cannot imagine you doing something.
It went
like
through.
that.
Oh, in my head, I was ripping her hair out, and
You were hulking out.
I was properly neck breaking, getting so fucking angry. But it happens all the time. Like people, I was walking to a bar last night, slightly hungover today. That's one of the reasons why we're quite late. And it's like a massive avenue, really wide pavement. 7 people were in a row. I had to go on the road to get around them because they wouldn't break up so that I could pass through.
What was it, like a bullfight or something?
No, they were just walking at 3 o'clock in the morning as well, 3 a.m. And I was walking to a club and I couldn't go along the sidewalk because there were 7 people like in a row that are so pig-headed they couldn't like separate to let people through. Just
That's the thing with these Europeans; they just stay up too late.
yeah,
Yeah.
rude. I went to bed at 6:30 in the morning.
See, just come back. Come
Yeah.
on home, Yorkshire boy, to the valley you belong.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Yeah, I wanted to rip off Red and
Crooner over
shit in her
here.
neck, as Don Beagle said. So Flighty, what have you been up to?
Gosh, I have been playing a shitload of Warframe lately.
Oh, game. Go into the game section.
I mean, we might as well, right?
Wait, so let me find a suitable.
Don't fucking tell me you've actually prepped for this and you've got some kind of sound.
Games! Bring out your games! Bring out your games!
That was incredible.
There you go.
It's like fucking Birmingham train station. That's what that's like.
Bring out your games. Ah,
Oh,
That's what I've been up to.
yeah. So how is Warframe? Because it's coming to the Switch, so I want to know a lot about it. Because I'm going to play it, but I'm not going to play it till it comes to the Switch.
Well, if you like farming, that's the one for you. But
Like
also
actual farming.
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't realize it was one of those games.
Space ninja farming. You get like a plot of land and you plant little ninja seeds.
Oh, grow your own ninjas.
But I'm a big fan of it because the gameplay mechanics are really interesting. You can just you can jump and slide and fly and glide and hit things with swords and guns, and it's just so satisfying
Yeah.
when you're kind of running through stuff. And I'm currently playing with a certain person of interest, and there are 2 Warframes that we're working on getting. One of them, I can't remember her name. Cora or something like that. She's BDSM themed. She
Oh.
has like a whip, and she has a like her ultimate power is called the strangle cage, and it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
she
Oh.
like, oh man, it's so
Oh
good.
god, you're bringing
And
memories of last night now.
so my person of interest is getting that one, and the one that I'm getting is called Valkyr, and she wears a collar, and she's like really angry and punches things all the time. So
She's on the leash.
yes, absolutely, to give you an idea of the dynamic between myself and the person of interest.
I
What?
just love the fact you're using the term person of interest. I'm just not going to explain that, and I really don't want you to either. Let's just leave it at that.
Sounds
And
like-
let the
I
viewers
think-
just kind of work out what you mean.
I think you know. I think you know.
I think I know. If anybody was tuning in for the first time and you're just throwing out person of interest, I love the idea of them just coming into that raw. That's fantastic.
I need to use that phrase when I can. Is the person of interest in trouble with the police? Says Don.
No.
That could be a good role play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Then it would be me who was in trouble.
See,
I love the like embarrassed smile that you have, Ben.
yeah. I like it. It's like it. I haven't had any
Anyway,
beer for
Warframe.
this. So
So
what?
I've got a lot of respect for Warframe. I think I'll always remember Warframe as one of the first games that I ever played on PS4. It was a launch title.
Mm.
I'm sure we've gone through this on the show before, but I'll say it again because why not? It was one of the first games I played on the PS4 because it was there. It was free to play. It was at launch, and it was shit, like really shit. Some like really generic third-person combat game that I played 5 minutes of and just thought, "Fuck me, never want to play that again." Terrible. And then, like, how long has the PlayStation been out? Like 5 years. Move on, and then everybody's like, there was this one tweet I just saw once. And I cheered some kind of rumblings that, you know what, Warframe's still fucking going, man. Warframe, they've added a lot. It's pretty decent. And then one guy that I quite respect online just tweets out, oh, shit. In the last 5 years, when we've all been ignoring Warframe, they made it the perfect video game.
Yeah, basically.
What?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
It's
I tried
free
it
to
a couple
play
of
as well.
times. I think, yeah. So, yeah. And considering it's free to play, I think it's fucking great. Like, if you sat me down, maybe watched 30 minutes of somebody playing that game and then told me it was a fully priced AAA title, I wouldn't argue with you. The mechanics gel together really well. There's a really good sense of like pace to the combat. It's a mix of like melee and shooty stuff. And kind of loads of Destiny-esque kind of upgrades. You kind of go back to your ship and start upgrading your frames and adding shit to your ship. I've never really got that far into it, but I think everything that I've seen seems superb, and it's one of those games that they've brought so many really substantial updates to that you kind of think, wow, if I go into it now, I would have so much fucking content to get through. And again, just the fact that it's free. Like, not everybody has the privilege of being able to buy a couple of games every month. I love the fact that there's something like this out there that somebody can really jump into and not necessarily pay any money for it. Obviously, there's ways that you can put money into this game, and obviously there should be for them to carry on doing it. But just the fact that there's so much content there and it's to be accessed for free, I think hats off to whoever that developer is.
Absolutely. And the game is so beautiful and detailed, and it's ridiculous. You can customize nearly everything that your character owns, colors and patterns and shit. And I love how the characters are the different warframes are so extra in their design. They've got ribbons and like extra curly Q things on them, and they're just ninjas running around killing stuff with all of these weird clothing impediments, but they're so good that they don't impede them.
Don Biggers in the chat says, have you seen the new update video? Because you'll man a 4-player ship and battle it out in space.
Shut the fuck up. Really?
Sounds amazing.
Oh man, bringing some of that Elite Dangerous up in there.
Well, that would tempt it. Yeah, I really want to play, and I'm going to get it when it comes to Switch. In fact, related
Digital
to
Extremes is the developer.
Yeah, shout out. I think it's one of those games that definitely got caught in the Destiny wave, and it was one of those games that kind of saw what Destiny did and built a lot of that stuff into it, but it's clearly working out for them. And I'll say it again, hats off, fair play.
Yeah. Related to that, actually, I've been playing quite a lot of Destiny 2. In fact, one of the reasons we're late is that I was doing the Destiny 2 Leviathan raid for the second time this weekend. Did it on Friday.
Is that the second raid? Is that the one they added?
No, this is the first raid.
Right.
I've done that. They've added like 2 raid layers, which are kind of mini raids. Those ones I haven't even tried yet, but I'd never finished the first raid with Destiny, and I managed to go in and finally we did it quite easily in the end on Friday. We did it. It was like 4.5 hours, but it was just getting to know the mechanics and remembering them.
Easily 4.5 hours.
Well, today we did it in 3. It was about 3 hours we did it, and that was with a couple of with 2 people who'd never done it before.
So is it just still the one big raid, and then they've released a couple of? I think it's set in the kind of same place, isn't it? The other kind of sub raids. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know much about the other 2. I'm going to try and finish them before the next podcast so I can explain them more. But yeah, there's so much. It's so deep and detailed as well. Like when you go into that raid, you go into like a main area first, and then you do some certain things, and it'll unlock like a specific area. So there's the central area, then there's 3 other areas that you have to complete before you can face the boss. And yeah, so we went to the central area, cleared it, went to did the first like main area. Took a while because that one's like a stealth area. It's weird. Once we'd done that though, the guy who was kind of sherpering us, he went through we went through a magic or like an air vent and went in the underbelly of the entire
magic
ship.
air vent.
A magic air vent. It was magic.
Yeah.
There was a lot of magic in there. And we went in this air vent, we found some extra chests and like went through the underbelly pretty much of the ship and somehow ended up in the next area. So we didn't even have to go back into the central one to unlock it. And like it was so well designed. Like you do feel like you're on this giant floating ship that's just got its like the biggest one you'd ever seen. It's like a planet size. In fact, is it a world eater? Is that the name of it? I think it's the world eater, or that might be something different. Where it's and how it kills it. But yes, it is a world eater, says Noroxin. So yeah, it is huge, and you do feel like it's huge as you're wandering around. But it's just such a really, really fun game, and it's a co-op with 6 players, so you're all working together. You can see where people are, failing, and give them some advice. If everybody knows how to do it and they're at the appropriate level, you could probably finish that in about, realistically, I'd say about an hour and a half, maybe.
I'm sure that some idiots have done it in like 20 minutes or
yeah,
something.
17 minutes.
Absolutely.
I think 17 minutes is the record.
17 minutes, my
Yeah.
God. Is that somebody doing it on their own, or is that somebody with a fire team?
I think it's with the fighting, but I don't know if they've got some kind of glitch that they've got like to the boss pretty much straight away or something.
Okay, because I know with OG Destiny, like when it came to the raids, there were people just going in on their own. Like I remember going into full disclaimer, I fucking hate the raids in Destiny. I'm pretty much a single player Destiny guy, which I know is weird. That's not what that game is designed for, but I've had a lot of fun. I put like 500 hours into OG Destiny, maybe like probably less than 100 into Destiny 2, but really enjoyed my time. The majority of that being single player. But the raids are just something I cannot contest with, and that like even if it was to do they do matchmaking now for raids?
I think there's some kind of there might be a long wait and stuff, and you have to use voice chat and
they did some weird system where they'll match it with somebody, didn't they? But like the first one, they were really adamant of not matchmaking, and like when I did it the first time, that is not how I want to play Destiny. Like Destiny for me is about feeling powerful and having this really fluid combat going on, and then you go into these raids and all the enemies are really high powered, which isn't too much of an issue because there's like 6 of you, and that's fine. If it's just going to be hardcore combat, that's fine. But then when it comes to like the puzzle stuff and working shit out, and there was a bit of a watershed moment for me where I think it was like maybe like the second raid they introduced into the first Destiny. You'll probably know, like when you first go down there, everything is dark, and you need to kind of run forwards.
Yeah, I think that might be Vault of Glass. I've the first 2 raids I did I speed ran it afterwards. Because my first ever one was the King's Fall raid or something, and that was so much fun.
So the Vault of Glass was the first one, wasn't it?
Oh, was it Crota's End?
Ever raid.
Maybe.
But like anyway, this one you kind of start in this room, and there's this. You just need to basically just run forward, but you need to either do it in a certain time or like things are going to fuck you up if you don't do it, basically. And got in there, and I always play as a hunter because I love the hand cannon. And whoever I was playing with was like, okay, you need to change to your subclass. And I'm like, I don't have that subclass. And they're like, hey, do you're a hunter? And I'm like, no, like I play as this. I play as this hunter in this subclass. I don't touch the other subclass. I haven't updated it. And he's like, well, you need to update that subclass. I'm like, right, I'm out, because these type of games where there's like really robust upgrade mechanics, I'd like to upgrade my characters in a very particular way and just keep them like that. I don't like to have to kind of change things to suit the situation, which I guess some people like to do that and kind of kit themselves out for certain types of levels and stuff, but that is not the way that I play. So I was like, no fucking way. If you're going to tell me like that I need to use a particular type of subclass that I'm not used to using, I'm just going to go and play some single player levels that I've already done 10 times on my own. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, now you can get a pretty much higher level, so it doesn't matter. And like the person, you can be carried pretty much. Like we did it with a guy who was under leveled by about 10 or 15 light levels, which would, if we were all really close, you know, if it was maybe a prestige raid, the hard version of it, or we were all just at that level, we probably wouldn't have been able to do it. But I mean, yeah, the raid is definitely a co-op experience, especially with Destiny 2. It's a lot of it it's a lot more puzzle over fighting than anything else. So it sounds like you'd hate it.
Which is exactly not what, like I get it. Like I've heard way too many testimonies now of people that have gone through it and absolutely loved it. Maybe a bit of a love-hate thing, like especially early on, you know, when it takes 5 hours to do it.
Yeah.
You definitely get that kind of Dark Souls-esque relief, I guess, when you get through the end of it. I recognize that. But then a lot of people genuinely like the puzzle stuff. I can't think of anything. I don't like puzzle games, and I definitely don't want fucking Destiny to be any kind of puzzle game when it comes to all the abstract
as
stuff.
well.
It's like, look, Destiny for me is, if it moves, you fucking shoot it. And that's all I want in it. So, you know, more power to the people that want it. And I think I came to a realization with Destiny 2, you know, as much as I enjoyed that game, I certainly didn't put the amount of time into it that I thought I would. And I worry for Destiny, but at the same time, you know, even if it does carry on, even if you do get a Destiny 3 and it's more of the same, I don't think it's for me. I'll obviously get it, and I'll be more realistic now. You know, I'll put my 50 hours in and be happy with it. I think there's a lot of
the new
dissatisfaction
expansions. The new expansion is going to be like equivalent of, I think, when they brought out the Taken King in Destiny 1. It sounds like it's going to be awesome. And also next week they're bringing in. There's another big update on Tuesday, which is, I think that's the one that brings in bounties. So you had bounties in Destiny 1, they're coming back. But they're going to have a lot more. I think they're going to cost more if you want to buy them, but they have better rewards and they're a lot tougher. So this sounds kind of fun. And Iron Banner's on right now, which I do love.
So what's prompted your foray back into Destiny? Is it getting ready for the big new update? Yeah,
getting ready for it. And a couple of people in my chat had mentioned that they were playing it. And I went back in and I thought, oh, you know what, I'll level up another character. I've got one more. So I've got one left. So I went and leveled up my Warlock. And just been playing with people and having a really cool time. And it's a good game. You know, you can play a bit of music in the background. You can chat while you're streaming. So it's a really good streaming game for that. And then on Friday, just like, hey, we've got enough people if anybody wants to do a raid. And then it took quite a long time to do it, but right at the end, it was that like sense of relief. And they reward you constantly. So every time you clear an area, you get a nice, if it's that first one of the week, the first time of the week you've done it, then you get a nice big reward. So there's always, even if you don't finish it, you're always going to be leveling up. And once you know it, it's simple. If you go and 6 people go in who know what they're doing, it shouldn't take long at all. Yeah, and Nerox in the chat, so it didn't feel like 4 hours because we're having fun the whole time. Neroxin's interesting because he has played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of Destiny 1 and 2. He knows everything about Destiny 2. And this on Friday was the first time he'd ever done a raid in Destiny. And said, that was, I pretty much don't want to speak for him when he's in the chat, but he loved it. And as did another guy called Jackal, who was there, who's never done a raid before and was just like blown away. And
I remember everybody being really excited about it. Y'all were making me super jealous.
Well, you've got Destiny now, Flighty. You're going to have to, you go level up and you can join us for a raid once.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, Noroxin said he was like Jordan before Friday. Like never not to do the raid, and then when he went and did it, he's now a big fan.
For me, a lot of it is just that co-op stuff. Like gaming for me, I don't want to be cliche and say gaming is an escape. It's not, but it's definitely my go-to hobby. It's something I do to relax. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm quite a solitary person. I like my own time, and to think about like 4 hours with one of you idiots in my fucking headset talking. I've done it. Like I've done a couple of the raids, and like to every one of them that I did, the end of it, I just felt fucking suicidal, man. I was just like, I hate this, and the amount of pressure that you have on you to keep on going. Like what was the one where you killed a big hive guy in the first game? The big giant fucking guy, and there was that you could do like an exploit to unplug the console or something. Crotos?
Crota? Yeah, Crota's End.
Crota. Like that, I remember doing that one, enjoying it, leading up to it, and then like the last 2 hours was just hell in terms of I'm done. It's like 11 p.m. I'm like, I don't want to be fucking playing this anymore. But then I'm with a group of guys who like I don't want to let them down and like leave, so I just got dragged through it for fucking 2 hours, and then we just did some shitty exploit at the end where the person that was hosting just unplugged their PlayStation, and that meant that the guy froze up and we just shot him to death, and he was like, okay, cool. And then I got some fucking rocket launcher that I'll never want to use, and broke it apart for one of the 16 different currencies in the game. It's just hell. Destiny is fucking hell.
I get it. It's not your thing.
I love Destiny.
But for the raids,
I'm a Halo guy.
The thing I love about Destiny, there's a bit for everyone. Like if you love PvP, you can play the entire thing just PvP. Yeah. There's even special events on right now. There's the Iron Banana. Then there's the raid. If you want to have like a massive co-op puzzle experience, you can then go and do some adventures if you really want to do like the story missions, and you can repeat them. There's pretty much whatever. They've tried to make Destiny suitable for everybody, and they've managed to get it quite deep in each part. Just some people want a bit more, and now they're going to add the lore with the expansion. So in game, you'll be able to check out what's happening over there and read up on it. No rusty keys to read.
Oh my god!
I know it's only taken them 10 years.
But yeah, it's I'm not down on Destiny. Like I said, I'm a massive Halo fan. I can't wait for the 4K update for the Master Chief stuff. I'll totally be playing that. I played so much Destiny, and I was on like the Destiny Alpha and the Destiny Beta, and I was like a big proponent trying to get people excited about Destiny. Because if you remember before Destiny 1 came out, people were really fucking down on that game, and I could never understand why. So I was like, this is Bungie. Like this is their first game they're making after Halo. And it's at the time it was like almost like a PlayStation exclusive. I was like, this game's gonna be fucking great. And it was really good, but I don't know. The thing is with Destiny, it makes you want to play it for 500 hours, and when you get to like 400 hours, you feel like shit.
Oh.
What have I got to show for it? Flighty, so have you played any of it yet, Flighty?
Not Destiny 2, no. I've actually been busy on my stream playing a game called Echo.
Ooh, yeah, what is that?
Oh my god, it is so good. When I purchased it during the last Steam sale, and I just had some credit chilling in my Steam account, so it was one of those games where I was like, I purchased it. I do this a lot, and I get bit in the ass for it a lot. I usually purchase things based on the art.
Yeah, oh, me too.
Like the cover art. I just like taking chances like that sometimes, especially if I just have like on the rare occasions that I have a little bit of money just laying around. Like that's kind of how I find new experiences.
Yeah.
So I purchased Echo, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea about the gameplay. Nothing. I didn't know about the story. And then I started playing it, and it has been really, really good to me so far.
Yeah, it looks good.
It has a very small development team of I want to say about 15 people or so. And it is one of the most visually gorgeous games I have ever played in my life. The premise of the game is very interesting, and it's something that I personally don't think I've ever seen in a video game before. It's kind of like a stealth puzzle game almost.
Okay.
And the story is sort of exposing itself via cutscenes, like very slowly between the areas that you go through. So I'm very excited. I think I might be finishing up today because I think it's like a 6 to 8 hour game.
Yeah, someone said they finished it in 6. I was looking at the reviews. It looks, like a 6-hour game. But really,
Yeah,
I like the look of it.
it's so beautiful, and I like when people come into my stream to watch me play it. I think just by watching me play for like 10 minutes or so, I've convinced like 3 other people to buy the game and try it for themselves
Oh,
because they
nice.
just kind of like the look of it and the idea behind it. So yeah, buy Echo and play it.
Looks interesting. Would you ever? Have you seen it, Jordan?
I'm just on the Steam page now trying to work out that I know about, and I don't think it is. When you said Echo, there's this other game that I'm guessing isn't just called Echo, but it was out like maybe 2 years ago or something, and you kind of played it, and you're like, if you died, the moves that you did, the moves you did on your last turn, like there'd be a ghost there completing those moves, and that would kill you. But this doesn't look like that. I think this is a different game. It looks nice. The style's good. Some of the stuff that's been said in the reviews is really positive, and
Yeah.
I like the developer name, Ultra, all in capitals.
Yeah, it's so good.
Since in the chat says I always manage to finish 6-hour games in about a week. Yeah, I force myself to. If I know it's a 6-hour game, I make sure I've got I'm going to be streaming for well over 6. I'm going to force myself to to finish this.
Right, yeah.
Otherwise, I just wander around and yeah. No,
I always manage to stretch out like 6 to 8 hour games into like 10 to 14-hour games because I'm very much I wouldn't say I'm a completionist, but I do like exploring as thoroughly as possible so that I can appreciate everything. And the thing about Echo is that exploring is cool, but you can definitely fuck yourself really, really fast if you show a little too much curiosity.
Yeah. Curiosity
So-
killed the
So what's this?
gamer.
They're talking about this mechanic teaching the enemies how to kill you. Like what is that's what made me think that it was the other Echo game where like your actions are fucking you up.
Sure. So you are in this giant palace that learns what you do, and there are clones of yourself throughout the palace. And occasionally the palace shuts down, everything goes dark. So while the lights are on, while the palace is recording your moves, it's learning. And then when the lights go out, it doesn't record your moves. However, when the lights come back on, all of the clones know how to do the things that you were doing during the last lights on cycle. So, if you open a door during the last lights on cycle, they can open doors.
Cool.
If you use your pistol, then they can use the pistol. I actually fucked myself really hard during a puzzle the other day because I tried to sprint towards a door and I was not thinking about it at all. It was just like second nature. And then during the next light cycle, when I wanted to run away, this asshole came sprinting towards me and scared the living shit out of me. So it's really cool trying to like use that as a strategy to sort of shape the area and kind of shape how you're going to move around it and get to your goals.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Does sound interesting. I like you, Flat. You always pick kind of unusual games I've not heard or games that I have heard of but I wouldn't play. It's always kind of interesting games you choose.
Thank you. It's not doing much for my viewer count, but I kind of don't care about that, so like it's fine.
It's good because you think
I don't think I'm ever gonna make partner because of this, but like whoever does come in always seems to enjoy themselves. So
yeah, you just need one person who's like, hey, this quirky girl plays quirky games. I wanna watch it more. No, it's great. All right. Before we move on to Jordan's game, I played and finished Resident Evil 7 VR. Mentioned it on
Yay! I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it on the Twitch play last week, but oh my god, that game is such a good game. I really, really love Resident Evil 7. Just a quality, simple yet well-designed horror game. And I like the turn. Like the pace changes halfway through. It changes quite dramatically into pretty much just lots of shooting, fewer jump scares until right at the end. And I just I was a really big fan of it. And I finished it in VR, so I did like the second. I played maybe 80% of that game in VR, maybe 70%. Halloween, I'm going to do a full playthrough of it all in VR, so I'll be able to claim that I finished it and gone from start to finish. But it's but now I know where the jump scares are. But yeah, it's just such a really fun experience, and similar to like the Destiny raid, it's one of those that experiences that you can only gain in gaming, and like it's when you finish it and go, wow, that was just such an awesome experience. And I felt like that when I did the Destiny raid, and I felt like that when I finished Resident Evil 7 in VR. I wasn't scared. Like when I finished it, I thought, oh god, I'm never going to be able to sleep. But instead of having like any kind of fear, all that was going through my head was like, wow, that game was amazing. I loved it. And I don't like horror games. I don't play horror games at all. But when they are good, I will devour them. Like Silent Hill. Like it's probably the best horror game I've played since Silent Hill. Silent Hill 2.
Oh man, a
while
that's
ago.
some high praise right there. Silent Hill 2 is like the best one.
Yeah. I'm going to be getting my PlayStation 1 when I go home, and I'm tempted to play a bit of Silent Hill 2.
I'm so excited.
I zoned out. Why are you talking about Silent Hill?
I was saying that Resident Evil 7 is the best.
I'll talk about Silent Hill. What's going on?
The best horror
all day,
game.
every day.
Yeah, Resident Evil 7 is the best horror game I've played since Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
You a fan of you enjoyed Resident Evil 7, didn't you?
I did. So I'm a fucking stinking dirty Resident Evil fan. I've got in my camera I could get them for you. I've got like 4 fucking Resident Evil novelization shelf.
Wow.
Which I know is ridiculously horribly nerdy. But I love Resident Evil. And when you were talking then I was kind of thinking to myself about just how fucking weird Resident Evil is, and it kind of mirrors horror films in a way where you get like in horror films, like you tend to get even the best horror films, it tends to be like the first one's fucking amazing. You'll be lucky if you get a good second one, and then there's just 8 trash sequels. Resident Evil's kind of like that. Yeah, Resident Evil's kind of like that, but Resident Evil's had a really weird trajectory. Like so you've got the first Resident Evil game on PS1, which now is ridiculously dated. But at the time was kind of groundbreaking. Took a lot from a couple of older games, but really brought it to life and pretty much birthed survival horror as we know it now. Then you got Resident Evil 2, which is legit like one of my favorite games of all time, like top 5 stuff. Just kind of took what we did in the first one, but a lot more kind of production value. 2 discs, which is always good. It's like PlayStation 1 2 discs, must be amazing. It was just fucking superb. Right. The third game was kind of just more of the same. Almost felt like what we would see now is like an expansion, kind of set in the same time, set in the same city, very similar mechanics. Then you get kind of some spin-off stuff, and there's a lot of Resident Evil games which are non-numbered. And then you get Resident Evil 4, which is fucking like Resident Evil. I can't talk enough about how good Resident Evil 4 is and how important it was to just games in general, and how many games that we played today you wouldn't have if it wasn't for Resident Evil 4. And then it kind of went off the boil again. You had like Resident Evil 5, which kind of shit the bed a little bit, went on the co-op route.
Yeah, Melvin and I tried to play that during the 24-hour stream, and I don't know if it was our tiredness, but we were in a room and we couldn't get out, and we spent like 10-15 minutes going. We've pretty much tried to click on absolutely everything. We've gone through everything in our inventory. There's no way of getting out of this room. Yeah, let's turn it off.
It was okay at the time, but like in retrospect, I played Resident Evil last year. There's anybody that hasn't played it, if you got it's on everything right now. But like the best version that I found is the HD edition on PC on Steam. Superb. You can play it in 4K, 60 frames a second. It's got a modern controls option, and that game still plays as good as it ever has done. Resident Evil 5, as much as at the time I was like, yeah, cool, like this is building on 4, and it's kind of got a co-op thing, but I'm going to ignore that and just have the AI partner. But actually, it just pales in comparison. Just doesn't play as well. Like the fourth one is just a masterclass in games design. And then again, it just went on hill and probably hit a low point with Resident Evil 6. Like 6 is super bad.
The only thing I know about Resident Evil 6 is that the logo looks like a giraffe. In Fellatio.
That was the start of like when that became a meme. It's fine. That's just the logo. People being childish. It's fine. And then the game came out and I was like, fuck, it really was a giraffe sucking a dick. But like, and it's not for lack of effort. They really fucking tried with that game. They spent a lot of money on that game. There's multiple campaigns. They listened to the fans in terms of, look, Resident Evil 4, yeah, cool when actiony, but he was still kind of scary, and also he was fucking superb. But we do like the survival horror stuff. Can you go back to that? So they had multiple campaigns. The Leon campaign, i.e. the guy from Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, that was supposed to be like a slower paced, kind of really scary survival horror experience. None of it just came together. Like they just threw a lot of money at it, but none of the finesse, none of the kind of skill that they had in some of the previous games. It was a bit of a downer, and it felt like, fuck, what are they going to do? Are they going to reboot this? None of this mentioned, like, there's a remake of the original Resident Evil game, which is known, like, outside of this year's Shadow of the Colossus remake. I would, and that's more of a like for like remake. Resident Evil remake is a reimagining of a game. It's known as just the remake of any game ever. They do it so well. They're going to bring what you remember of the terror and the fear of playing that game as a kid into kind of current. It's beautiful. Like, it was on the GameCube, but kind of current day graphics. It's absolutely fucking astonishing. But anyway, 6 was a fucking disaster, and we kind of all thought that, right, they need to reboot this or just kill off the franchise. And then fucking 7 comes along. And it was weird because he was on the back of PT, which is, this kind of first-person demo for a new Silent Hill game. And everybody wanted PT, but then Konami ripped it away from us. And then Capcom comes along. They're like, oh, well, Resident Evil 7's first-person. What do you think of that? And we're like, fuck off, Capcom. You can't do anything right. You can't make a first-person horror fucking game. And then they released it, and it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, it's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
As a hardcore Resident Evil fan, there's some things about it I don't like. It's a numbered game. It has nothing. Like, there's some small little references. I know that Chris is in like a DLC and stuff, but as like a Resident Evil nerd, it doesn't really feature in that kind of timeline. There's nothing that's really linking it back. But outside of that, like, especially the first half of that game, I think is a horror masterclass. And the fact it seems to be built for VR, I would argue.
Yeah.
I think they looked at that game as a VR game before they looked at it as a traditional game, and it's cool that it works for both, because you'd think that it wouldn't.
I can't wait to see what the next
half
one's
of that
going to
game. Everything leading up to the family kitchen scene, and a good few hours after that, I think, is just people listening to audio. I did the Italian. The grandma thing that just fucking turns up randomly when you open doors and she's just fucking sitting there is just fucking brilliant. Like, games are very rarely that subtle. And they did little subtle things. Resident Evil, that's the least subtle game you can imagine, but they did a few little really sneaky, scary, subtle things. It jumps the shark at certain points. I'm not as down on the action heavy ending.
No, I don't mind it. I like how you went through the house again.
Yeah, that's almost traditional now for Resident Evil, is it, for it to ramp up towards the end in terms of the action stuff.
It's because, like, I went back, I was like, oh, I'm back home now. Like, when you go back to the house after being away from it for quite a while, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm back home. Oh, yeah, I just remembered I'm terrified of this house. Yeah, so then you get
I don't want to go home.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was terrible. And, like, Resident Evil's always flirted with, like that game is called Biohazard for a reason. It's not a supernatural thing. It's about, like, chemicals fucking people up and creating these horrible things. But it's always kind of flirted with the supernatural. The plan for the second one was to have, like, ghosts in it, and the fourth one was going to have weird ghosts in it as well. And they never really did it.
My favorite is that in Japan it's called Biohazard. Isn't it Biohazard Resident Evil? And then ours is called Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and theirs is called Biohazard 7 Resident Evil.
So, like, OG Resident Evil Japan is just called Biohazard. In the West, they didn't think that name would do very well. So I think Resident Evil is a really cool name, but the history of it is just that whether it's the developer or the publisher just decided on that name, and the like creative minds behind it fucking hated the name. Like, what the fuck? What does that even mean? But it's obviously stuck, and I think it was a really cool thing to do with 7 to swap the.
My little brother used to
around.
When I used to play it as a kid. My little brother used to call it President Evil. You want to play the President Evil game? Yeah.
Oh God, it's predictive.
Yeah. All right. So, Jordan, how is Octocock Traveler?
Ooh.
Just speaking of Spunky Pants, I played that Captain Spunk Pants demo for Life is Strange thing. Looks cool. Kind of got me hyped for Life is Strange 2. Go and play it. It's free. And then, it kind of reminded me why I liked Life is Strange. The music is on point. Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's all you're getting from it. Captain Spunky Pants. Yeah. That's the name. Just type it into Google.
Okay. Safe search off.
Yeah.
Yeah. before we move into Octotwat, I just want to say to you, Ben, we need, in the same way that we did the Metal Gear playthrough,
Mm-hmm.
Which I think you appreciated. I think you
I
came out of
did.
that game.
I'm looking forward to
understand what a classic
playing
that is.
the second snake-eating one.
No, Ben, no. The second one, is Sons of Liberty.
Sons of Liberty.
Snake
Okay.
Eater is the third. Yeah.
Ah.
Don't worry about that for now. We'll cross that.
That's
bridge
the
when we
old. Isn't it the third one? Is the first one?
get, chronologically, yeah.
Look at me. Look at me. And the fourth one was on the Xbox. Yeah.
But we need to spend 20 hours playing Resident Evil 4. We need to do that at some point. We need to do a stream where you're playing it. I know that game like the back of my hand. I wouldn't spoil
And
it for you.
where you
I wouldn't
spoil it,
lie
and
to you.
we put it on YouTube, and everyone gets bitchy in the comments. Look at that cock spoiling it
Fuck
for
them.
him.
Fuck them. Who gives a fuck about YouTube comments? Why are you reading them? I gave you that code. I don't know if you've cashed in. Yeah,
I don't think I
cashed
have
the code
actually.
in.
I
When you've got a free weekend, we're gonna smash through that game because I guarantee you,
sounds good.
you like a good game. You like good gameplay. You will love Resident Evil 4.
All
I
right,
promise you.
I'm down for that.
Okay, down to fuck. All right.
So, Octocock.
Octocock. Octopath Traveler is a game that I've been playing. I was really hoping we'd have Mellum discuss because I know he's been playing it too, and I think his thoughts are very, very similar to mine. So to refresh people's memories on this is the Square game that I think Nintendo are publishing for Switch. Very much, at least at face value, a traditional JRPG, reminiscent of like Final Fantasy VI kind of era, but adds almost like you have the like pop-up paper craft stuff where you have like a pop-up book. It's kind of got that aesthetic to it, and also like really nice lighting effects, which obviously you would never get in like a SNES era top-down JRPG. So essentially, it plays like a traditional 16-bit JRPG, but has got some really nice graphical stuff going on, which is really charming. And it's always kind of stood out since, I think when they announced the Switch, this is one of the games that they said, look, this is coming. And since then, I'd be like, shit, yeah, I like the look of that.
Yeah.
And then when I got my hands on the Switch and I realized how much I loved it, and especially playing in handheld, I was like, right, I really want a deep JRPG to play on it. And now this is out. They did a couple of demos, and more recently they did like the 3-hour demo, which you could continue.
Yeah, that's
over,
the one I played. I've actually got Octocock, but it's even installed. But I've been obsessed with Destiny. Destiny has just taken me to this week, and I haven't even started Octopath.
Yeah.
I know. Can't justify
I'll play it for you. So you play Destiny, I'll play Octopath Traveler. So played the 3-hour demo, and like I played the first demo, and was like, yeah, totally, I like this, but don't like the feeling of I'm playing a demo, my progress isn't going to carry over, so kind of finished it early without the demo actually ending. And then played this 3-hour demo that they released. Now, the way that Octopath works, as the name suggests, there's 8 characters, there's 8 paths through this game. And at the start, you get to pick one character. They're varied. If you're familiar with like the job system in old school Final Fantasy games, kind of mirrors that. So you've got different classes. Each of them is an individual class in essence. Pick one of the characters. It starts off with their opening scenario, where you kind of learn who they are, from what fucking trials and tribulations they're up against. Then eventually you overcome a boss, and then you're released into the world, and then on the map it shows the other 7 travelers, and you can travel to them as an Octopath. And you meet up with, you basically go to a town, and if one of the travelers is there, they're indicated. You don't have to speak to them, but if you do, you get the choice of they'll basically say, oh fuck, something shit has happened and I need to go and fuck up this wolf. And you'll be like, you can obviously say yes or no. If you say yes, they'll join your party, and it gives you the option of seeing their starting story. And essentially, if you say yes to seeing their starting story, you're going to see the section of gameplay that you would have seen if you started playing as them. You go through that initial bit, and once you defeat that kind of boss that they're up against, boom, they're in your party. You do that 8 times.
Yeah, can I ask you, is it worth going and doing every single one the first time? Because I know some people have kind of progressed and they only unlocked 4 of them. And then they said, okay, I'm going to save the other 4 for another playthrough. Which are you doing?
So I've collected them all. I've got all 8. But I've got 3. The one that you start with, for some reason, I'm not sure. The one that you start with, you can't remove from your party ever. They're locked. You can make them. You can choose to be a different player primarily, and all that kind of means is that when you're walking around, that's who's leading the group essentially. But whoever you started as, so for me, it's the dancer lady. She is always going to be in my party. The way that I'm playing it is that, yes, essentially for the first 20 hours of the game, I've gone around unlocking all 8 of them, doing those opening sections. But I've got a core group of 3 people that I like to play as, and then the 4th one, I'm not precious about, and they can swap out, which makes sense because the way this game works is that once you've done that opening bit, that character's chapter will move elsewhere, and it'll say, right, okay, you need to go to X town, which is on this coast, and it'll be on the map. If you go there, you get the option of doing this second chapter. And then that person needs to obviously be in your group. So for me, I've got a group of 3 which are always going to be there, and I've leveled those up. They're like level 30, whereas the other characters are like between level 5 and level 15. And I bring them in, and then we go and do their little missions.
So can you, the ones that are like 5, can you, are you going to eventually try and do all the chapters of everybody?
Yes.
And you can do that in one playthrough?
Yes.
Oh, and what I was going to say, is there any, the one thing I've heard that, I haven't seen anyone that's finished the game comment on this, but do any of the stories kind of intertwine?
Difficult for me to say because I've only done like 2 or 3 of the second chapters.
Okay, yeah.
I think the way that this game is built is that it isn't going to be a case of, the dancer lady's story is intrinsically related to the knights, and therefore when you get to night chapter 3, the dancer lady story will combine with that. That wouldn't make sense because you can literally play as the knight and not encounter any of the others. If you want to. So it totally doesn't make sense for them to intertwine in that way. But what does happen, there's definitely similarities between them at this point. There's hints of some kind of like undertow-y kind of cult thing that are doing stuff. There seems to be some kind of similarities there. And what I've noticed since I'm doing like the secondary chapters, so everything outside of the intro, when I complete one of them, you get an option of pressing the plus button, and you get a bit of dialogue between 2 people that are in your team. And obviously that could vary heavily because you can choose out of 8 people, but they've worked in some dialogue, and they'll comment on what's going on. And
that's good. I kind of like that. I like that. I like that it seems so far from reviews and stuff that they're not all going against this one enemy in the end, and they're all just kind of other like they're not just iterations of the same mission with the same ending. They've all got specific, completely unique purpose to be going out in the world, and they've got, and not just the reason to go out, but actually what they're doing when they're in the world. They're not just doing the same thing. Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it's going to go down the route of these are 8 separated individuals, but actually there's one big fucking evil bad thing that they're all going to combine against. Like that'd be a very easy route to go down.
Feels like just 8 different stories then that but then they work together to complete them.
The world is fairly gritty. Like I've spoken about on this show before. Like the dancer lady, when you start as her, she's initially like her dad is the head of like a really powerful house. He gets assassinated. She witnesses that assassination and then goes into hiding. And her whole thing then is that she wants to kill the people that assassinated her dad. She's just in some backwater desert town working as a dancer.
Pole dancer. Is it a stripper or a pole dancer?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Kind of that kind of stuff. And then when she's doing that one night, she witnesses, she sees one of the guys that killed her dad, essentially, like one of the henchmen, and that sets her off on her tail. But like the guy that's managing this kind of club or whatever that she's dancing in is really fucking abusive. Like it's implied that he sexually abuses her and stuff like that. Which for a JRPG, especially one that is riffing off the more old school ones, which are typically very much traditional fantasy stuff. So it's like, you got your knights, you got your queens, your dragons, and all that kind of stuff. This is a little bit more gritty than that. Some of the other stories are not as much like that. Some of them are quite lighthearted. Obviously, I haven't seen them through to completion yet. They kind of vary, but hers especially, and I'm really happy that I've chosen her as like the main character because she seems like the more interesting one. Yeah,
I've gone for Terion. I like the thief. Quite a few people went for him.
The thief guy, yeah.
I like that.
Okay, cool. So that brings me on to the other really thing about this. So each of the travelers have, obviously they've got a job type in terms of how they can fight. So like the guy that you're talking about is a thief. He can steal in battle, and he'll have certain types of power-ups and things. He'll have buffs and stuff that can help you in battle. Basically, he's never going to be like your tank or your main attacking guy. But also what he can do outside of battle, when you're walking around towns, NPCs with beach bubbles above their heads, you can talk to them, obviously, like that signifies that you can just speak to them. What it also does, if you've got 4 people in your party, you'll have 4 action indicators in the same bubble, and it'll basically you can choose how to interact with that NPC. So you could try to seduce that NPC, you could steal from that NPC if you've got the right person, you could ask them to follow you, just stuff like that, and that leads to some like really open gameplay. Like, as far as I can tell, the stealing stuff is kind of game breaking, because I'm literally just going around towns just fucking stealing everything that they've got from everybody, and just getting like really cool armor, really cool swords. And there's like level checks against it and stuff, and like percentages, and like if you try to steal or try to seduce somebody or whatever it might be, and you fail like 5 times in one town, town will turn against you. It doesn't really matter that much. All it means is that the action stuff is locked off until you go to a tavern and kind of pay. Like, it depends on which town you're in. If it's like a really affluent town, you'll pay like £4,000. If it's like a shitty backwater town, you'll pay like 1,500. Once you pay that, you can interact with the people again. So it's not too punishing. And like the open form gameplay of this, I think this game is probably broken as fuck. I've got to imagine, like, there's going to be loads of people probably speed running this, or just completely breaking it and making characters that are really, really powerful, or just doing silly things within the game. But I think that's part of the charm, that it is that kind of open, and you can do these weird things, and it's really lighthearted as well. Like, a lot of old school JRPGs are really fucking hard, and they've got a habit of not letting you save for 2 hours, and then having kind of 2 hours of dialogue, and then a 60-minute boss battle, and then when you die, obviously for the first 5 times you have to go through all that stuff again. There's none of that with this. The battles are not that hard. You've got a really cool battle kind of engine, and if you are going to go into a battle, there's always a save point before, and the game is doing auto saves for you as well, which for this type of game is very rare. So yeah, I'm fucking loving this game, and the fact that it's on the Switch is just the cherry on the cake, really. Like, this is the first game actually that I've actually plugged the Switch into the TV, and I'm playing it on the TV actively. I've never really done that, but I'm totally playing it on the handheld version. So I'll primarily play it on the TV, and then go to bed and just do a couple of dungeons, or I even played it like outside today. I just fucking love the Switch for that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a perfect Switch game, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm going to play on the train. It's going to be my train game. Are you ever tempted to get a Switch, Flighty?
With all of the ports that are coming over, it's been really, really tempting for me. I've always had a little bit of a problem with Nintendo, and that I'm usually only interested in a couple of games at a time.
Yeah.
The only exception really has been the DS and the 3DS, because of its portability, and because a lot of the games always seemed a little bit more interesting. So that being said, I think the Switch might be like the next portable Nintendo thing that I would be super interested in, especially if I can play Warframe on the go. That would be super fucking awesome.
That's what I want to try. I want to see how they do it. But apparently it's the same. The people who are sending Warframe over to the Switch are the ones that did, I think it was Doom and maybe Rocket League. Yeah, Rocket League.
Oh, nice.
So a good pedigree there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How they got Doom to run that fast, I don't know. Yeah, that's Mellum says he's got second job on all of them on Octopath.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to
that game is so good. And like, I know there was a lot of, I got kind of worried to release because I've been so excited for the game, and I know that there's a little bit of buzz around. Actually, you know what, the stories don't intertwine. It's a little bit repetitive and stuff like that. I'm 20 hours in, I'm not feeling that at all, which is a big relief for me, considering how much I was looking for.
It sounds good. You don't need the stories to intertwine. You know, if you get like little different stories and you're kind of working together to complete your own stories, that's fine. It's just a different narrative. I don't see it as a negative, really.
Yeah, I've got to imagine that criticism comes from somebody who assumed that would be the case and was building themselves up in that way. Like, from playing the demos and from what I hear about, I probably never really thought about it, but I had no expectation that those stories were really going to intertwine that much.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it in the demo and the way that it's presented and how open it is, like I said, you could. It'd probably be difficult to go and do the game solo with one person, but you could certainly pick 2 or 3 people and just go at it and never encounter. Well, you just walk past the other ones when you went to that town. So, to think that the stories would necessarily intertwine, yeah, probably
One
a
thing
little naive.
One thing I was going to ask about the map is, so when I played the demo, it shows you the map, and it's just like the world, and then there's all the various little different villages and places that you go to. Is the map any bigger than that? After, is there another area you go to, or is it just what you saw?
It seems like it's one map, but the map seems really big, so it's clouded over until you go into certain territories.
Okay, yeah.
The cities and towns are split by roads, which tend to be places where you'll get random encounters. Every time that you go into one of those areas, it opens it up on the map and you kind of see it. But I've probably only, in terms of the map, I've probably only opened up like a third of it so far, and I'm 20
Okay.
hours in. That's not to say
So there is
maybe
a lot
some of the
more.
map is wasted space. I'm not sure until I get there, but it'll be interesting to see how many chapters each character has. So you've got the introduction chapter, a follow-up chapter, which I've done for like 2 of them,
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 of them. And then there's another, like now on my map, I've got a 3rd chapter or I don't know whether it says 2 or 3, but essentially it's the 3rd chapter for that character. I'm not sure whether that's their last chapter, whether that'll be, the penultimate chapter, or whether there's way more after that. I'm really not sure.
I can't remember. I read how many there were, and I think wasn't 5, was it? Might be.
If there's 5, there's fucking shitloads of content in this game.
Maybe I'm
like
wrong.
Shitloads.
Yeah.
Because they take there's a lot of dialogue through, and then like the repetition stuff. I get why people would think that, because it is. It's very much okay. So I'm going to do that person's second quest. I'll go to this town. Something is happening in this town. There's some kind of dilemma, and based on the character, it'll either be like, I need to investigate this crime, or these bandits are attacking the town and we need to go take them out. And it follows the same kind of trajectory of a bit of introduction story, a little bit of traveling to get to the place that you need to get to, which will have random encounters within it. And then you'll get to the place which is a dungeon, which will have harder random side, and then eventually you'll have a boss.
Okay.
You'll defeat that boss, and then you'll have more dialogue. So in that way, it is kind of repetitive, but JRPGs have always been like that. Like they're always repetitive. You tend to get, towns placed around a world map. To get to each town, there's random battle, and then between boss battles and stuff, you get some story.
Seems like a perfect game for the Switch. Like, it's gonna be something I pick up, play for a few hours, then put it down, and then come back a bit later. So,
I think you'll either get addicted or you just won't play it. I don't think this is a game that suits just kind of dipping.
You don't think so?
Because even from playing that demo a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of toyed with, like maybe 3 hours before release, I would just jump back into the demo and redo it.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, it's fine. I'll just load my save. And then I did it, and I kind of felt lost. I was like, oh, what am I doing? And there's a lot of mechanics in the game, and even though it's streamlined, there's a lot there to kind of think about. So like I said, I think you'll either love it and do more and more and more. I think you'll play a little bit of it and then put it down. But like I said, I'll play it for you and spoil it for you. So that's fine.
All right. So, by the way, in the chat they say, do we know if the Warframe stuff PC will transfer to the Switch? I've heard that they very much doubt that will happen, because PC has some things that the console versions don't.
Oh, boycott Nintendo.
All right, time for the news.
I lost you there in the middle.
Oh, he's still going.
News.
It's like elks making love.
All right, what's in the news this week, Jordan?
There's not very much, and I know that you tend to ignore us in the Click Play WhatsApp thread, Ben.
I didn't ignore what thread? The WhatsApp.
Click. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've been following it. Yeah, I just don't reply.
Me and Audrey were talking about it. Like, now that it's a 2-week show, it doesn't really make sense to have like up-to-date news.
Oh, I know, I read that.
It's gonna be old.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that maybe like when is the group of us, we just bring one story each that we care about. But for today, I brought something for us to talk about, and then there's a big kind of
do our homework.
Yeah, and then there's kind of a big talking piece that we can go into. But I was thinking, it'd be, instead of like having the news, maybe just have whatever this week's flavor of controversy is within the community. We can all bring our educated opinions and argue about it and all that kind of stuff.
And never change our opinions.
But I do have one piece of news. There was apparently some kind of Steam leak. Did you see about this?
I didn't know.
So it's basically player counts. The way that I read this is that there was a leak around how many people own Steam games, And essentially, there's just this big fucking chart now of like how many people own a game in Steam, and you can literally look from the top in terms of the game that has the most people that own it, all the way to like not necessarily the bottom, but like there's just a massive fat list of them.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna go through like I don't know the top 20 of that list and see if you're surprised by it or
Yeah.
whatever else, and kind of give you the
Let me guess,
numbers that are
Dota.
behind it. So I guess what do you think is the most? I don't want to say bought because a lot of I imagine like a lot of people just had it for free or wherever else, or Steam sales and all that kind of stuff. But like in terms of what do you think is the most owned game on Steam? That's probably a good way to put it. The most owned game on Steam.
Want to be Dota because
TF2.
everybody has it?
Yeah, either
Slightly-
Dota or TF2.
What do you think, Ben? Before
I say Dota 2. Or maybe Dota 1.
It's totally Team Fortress 2, Flighty. Well done.
Oh.
Aha,
Okay.
thank you.
So they say player estimate. I'm not sure why it's an estimate if it was a leak, but they're saying it's basically over 50 million.
Wow. I don't even
Over
think.
50 million
Goddamn.
pounds owned Team Fortress 2, which is fucking insane.
Oh, yeah. I technically
I'll
own
make
it.
you guess the first three, and then we'll kind of leave it. It's not Dota. I
No?
can't see Dota anywhere in here. So, what do you reckon number
Oh.
2 is?
Rocket League.
No, I wish.
Half-Life 2.
No, I wish.
Dear Esther.
Counter Strike.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Ha!
you.
Boom.
Okay, cool. So we've got Team Fortress 2 and it's Counter Strike Global Offensive, which I was quite surprised by. I would expect like Source or something to be in there, but it's the
Yeah.
newest version of Counter Strike Global Offensive, which has well over 46 million players. And again, it's worth stressing these are not active players. This is basically how many Steam IDs
Sure,
are
yeah.
associated with this game. I've got both of those games. I've never fucking played them.
No.
Number 3 then.
Skyrim, says Neuroxin.
No.
Let me see here. I'm kind of going down my list here.
Yeah, I'm looking at what I've got. Because a lot of these are like the reason is like Dota and Team Fortress. I think everyone who has a Steam account owns it. Because I've got it and I've never touched Team Fortress.
As much as Global Offensive is relatively modern, this one is this is a modern game.
PUBG.
Yes, it is
Oh.
on Battlegrounds. So good for them. Like third.
Yeah, for real.
Obviously, Fortnite we can't compare because Fortnite is on the Epic launcher, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Team Fortress 2, Counter Strike Global Offensive, and then PlayerUnknown's. The fourth one I've never fucking heard of. Unturned. What's that?
Unturned.
Oh, Unturned is it's in the style of Minecraft, but you're kind of running around and surviving like a blocky zombie apocalypse thing. I haven't played it since it first came out. Like it was still in I think it was still in alpha when I played it, so it was very kind of thin in terms of content, so I'm not sure if it's gotten better.
Is it free to play?
Yeah,
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
So PlayerUnknown had over 36.5 million, and then well over 27 million. Okay, number 4 then was Left 4 Dead 2, then Payday 2, which is
That's free to play, isn't it?
Interesting.
Is that free to play? Yeah.
maybe it went.
No, you have to. Yeah, I don't know. I had to purchase it personally.
Originally, it was a paid game.
Okay.
I don't know whether they did a free to play thing, but yeah, I had 18 million. Gary's Mod then.
Yeah.
Warframe is next.
Yeah.
Oh.
And a payday's €10.
Then Counter Strike Source. Then Paladins, which I think is really ish. Kind of riff on the. It's kind of in line with Fortnite and stuff like that, isn't it? Like a MOBA version. Is that right?
Is it Overwatch? Paladins is like.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So the Overwatch.
Like
yeah,
a
except it's a
hero
MOBA.
shooter stuff.
Yeah.
Then Skyrim.
Yeah.
Then Terraria.
I remember from this list that people were shocked at how few people own the new Wolfenstein. And then this was on, I think this was on Twitter or something, and then all the comments were like, well, yeah, it is shit. It's nowhere near as good as the first one. It's terrible. And I'm like, what? Has public opinion suddenly changed on this game? Because like when it came out, people were like, wow, it's a really good game. It's awesome. Yeah, it's not as good as the first one, but it's still a brilliant game. But now people have decided that because it isn't as good as the first game, it's now the worst game ever.
Yeah.
So it's terrible on the PC. I'm fuming that I even had to buy it, that I couldn't get a refund for it on the PC because I bought it and then didn't play it for a few weeks and then realized that it was just constantly crashing and it was an absolute mess. so I went and rebought it on PS4.
Hmm.
But don't buy
I'm
it.
gonna make a quick prediction. I'm gonna say that Path of Exile is going to be on this list somewhere because it's basically free to play Diablo
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Diablo 3.
Annoyingly, this list isn't numbered, but that's definitely within the top like 30.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there between Trove and Killing Floor.
Killing
But
Floor,
what's
yeah.
interesting is that along with the player estimate, so for instance, like I said, Team Fortress 2 is over 50 million Steam IDs associated with it. It also gives the app ID, which I guess is like in the database, the number game that it was released within Steam. So Team Fortress 2 is 440. So whenever they released that game, there was only 439 other games on it.
God, they release those every
Hmm.
hour. 400 games.
Yeah, and PlayerUnknown Battleground is count the zeros on that. 57,000.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Oh no, 578. Sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking that's
Whoa,
quite
Missed
low.
a zero
actually.
there. 578,080. So that's interesting. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is down to 730. So I've got to assume that that has replaced Counter-Strike in terms of the.
It
It's probably
looks
very
old.
nerdy now, but yeah. But Global Offensive is that's like 5 years old, if that.
Yeah.
But you obviously replace old Counter-Strike, I guess.
Is
Anyway.
GTA on there?
Fuck yeah, of course. It is.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Like
That's
you said,
Steam.
I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15th.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
Then after that, Borderlands 2.
Any surprises? Any other surprises in there?
The list is long. Fallout 4 is in there. It's not a surprise, obviously.
Some like Humble Bundle games as well.
Tomb Raider, which I guess is the remake. Witcher 3 is just after Tomb Raider.
Banner Saga. Pretty much everyone has that game.
I doubt that that's on this list.
Or
I'll have a look.
XCOM maybe.
Oh no, the Banner Saga is on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got 745,000 sales. Anything else you want me to check before I delete this fucking nerdy page on my history?
What about I don't know, games on here that I think would make it. I'm just looking like what I've got. So what's stacking? Why have I got a game called Stacking on there?
That's like a deep cut. So Stacking's on here. It sold 248,000 copies.
Really? Oh wow, that's the game I bought it once in a Steam sale. I think it was in like a bundle. That looks like kind of Bioshock
You probably
Infinite.
like that. Probably like that.
Is it like Bioshock Infinite?
It's Russian dolls, so you know where like Russian dolls separate. You kind of
yeah.
it's a mechanic around that. So if something is one size smaller than you,
You can eat it.
I think that's right. You can basically control them and you get different abilities and stuff. It's all right.
Seems interesting.
Yeah.
Oh well. Great. All right, Flighty's just BRBing. Have we got any other news before we move on to the discussion
we're just
point?
Talk about the biggie.
Yeah. But guys, in the chat, we're probably not going to do many questions because I'd love to finish in the next 10 minutes because I've got to get up at 7 a.m. tomorrow. But if you do have any questions, feel free. Yeah. Well, maybe I think this topic.
While we're waiting, I'll show off this cool little kind of SNES controller that I've bought. So this is a USB-C controller, like Bluetooth connection that you can use with like emulators, and it works with your Switch as well. As you can see, it's pretty much like for like with a Switch controller, but it's got 4 shoulder pads and analog sticks, which also click.
Nice.
I heavily recommend it. It's called 8-Bit Do Gamepad. And they do lots of different styles. You can get like NES kind of ones and Mega Drive ones.
N64.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, not that anybody would want that.
No.
All right, Jordan, tell us this interesting topic that's happened right now.
Cool. All right, cool. So, like I said, I think maybe we can, instead of doing boring news stuff, we can start. What was the one we did 2 weeks ago? There's some big topic we did then as well. And we kind of got deep into it. We did a bit of a long form.
I can't remember.
There was definitely something. We went off on one about something.
Doesn't sound like
Doesn't
us.
matter. But anyway, so in like the last 2 weeks, basically since the time that we filmed this last one, there's been a bit of a hoo-ha. I tend to avoid this stuff. Like I like playing video games. I hate the video game industry, more specifically all the kind of bullshit that comes along with the media side of it. And the kind of politics and stuff like that. I just think it's really fucking boring, and I try to stay away from it. But this one has it's kind of got me invested in it and annoyed me a little bit, and I've got some opinions on it, and people have opinions, and kind of what really I was prepared to really ignore this one and just kind of think, that's fucking stupid, and just move on. But what really annoyed me, we talk about the Giant Bomb show quite a lot on the show. I listen to a lot of video game podcasts, Giant Bomb being one of them. I haven't heard a single podcast yet. I haven't read a single article via a major outlet yet, which I think represents this story correctly. And that's not to say that I think they need to agree with me on it, but I don't think they present the facts. And I think they're either misinformed or they're purposefully neglecting to report the facts, which really fucking annoys me. So I'd like to talk about it. So this is the tale of a lady by the name of Jessica Price, that worked for ArenaNet. And ArenaNet make an MMO. What's the name of the MMO? It's
Guild Wars 2. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I'll run you down a bit of a timeline in terms of what happened, and then we can talk about it, and then we can say what was right, and then we can write to everybody involved and tell them we've decided what's right and wrong.
And well, at the end of this podcast,
we're gonna solve this shit right here.
At the end of this podcast, we will all be on board with the way forward.
My opinions. So, so Ben, I know you're aware of it. We talked about it. Flighty, is this aware of? Kind of taking you through it for the first time.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
Very
caught
aware
up.
of it. So for the sake of the listeners then, on July the 3rd, Jessica Price, who, as I said, is a video game developer, specifically around MMOs, and I think she's a writer.
Yeah, she's been writing for 10 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Should know better. So a writer for Guild Wars 2, on July the 3rd, she starts quite an interesting thread around writing stories in games and the mechanics of those stories and what works and what doesn't. It's quite an interesting, kind of really in-depth, really inside baseball thing. A member of the community, and really invested member of that community, somebody that is heavily engaged and is within that community a lot and fairly well respected in that community, as far as I can tell, engages her and I'll say my opinion, I think it's pretty fucking objective that he engaged her in a very polite way. And he said, "Thank you for this. This is what I think about it. What do you think?" And I've got the whole. Let's read the thread, right? It's probably worth me kind of reading through it. So Jessica Price says, since I spent all kinds of time saying it on Reddit, Ask Me Anything, I haven't talked about actual game dev on Twitter in a while. Here's a thread about writing for PC character and MMO. Like I said, nerdy shit. He follows up with, the dirty secret is, I'm not sure if it's possible to make an MMORPG character that's compelling, because people have different expectations about what that character will be, as opposed to pre-designed character in a single-player game. I think that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
It's cool fucking insight from a developer. I've got no problem with that. Cool shit. Then this chap, who, like I said, is a member of the community.
I think they pay him to make content on YouTube.
Okay, they pay him.
Yeah, I believe so.
Shit, that adds a new fucking dimension to this. But okay, so I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but it's spelled Deroir.
Deroir.
Sure.
Deroir. It is French.
So he chips in. He says, "Really interesting thread to read," and then an OK symbol. So he's a Trumpist already. We know. However, allow me to disagree slightly. I don't believe the issue lies in RPG genre itself, as your wording seems to suggest. I believe the issue lies in the constraints of the living story's narrative design. He's then got a couple of tweets after that where he basically just outlines what he thinks about it. All very, as far as I can tell, respectful. He's engaging. He's giving some, I wouldn't even say it's feedback. It's just that he's bouncing off somebody that's clearly a professional and giving his opinions on it. And then her replies, "Thanks for trying to tell me what we do internally, my dude." So she gets a bit angsty. His reply is, "You're getting mad at my obvious attempt at creating dialogue and discussion with you instead of just replying that I am wrong or otherwise correct in my false assumptions." He's a little bit wordy. He's a nerd. Of course he's going to be. This is really disheartening for me. You do you though. I'm sorry if I offended. So he's already apologized. I'll leave you to it. That then leads to her kind of quote tweeting something to, what did she say? Let me see if I can find it. but in essence, kind of, mansplaining, and this is what it's like to be a lady dev or female dev and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, people react to that. She then comes out with a comment that she's not on the clock right now and she doesn't need to pretend to like these people. And then she says the next random asshat that tries to tell me how to do my job will be, I don't know, blocked, I guess. So that's kind of what it was. The internet obviously kind of latches onto it a little bit, which creates a bit of a focus on it. On July the 5th, her employers state that they fired her. Their statement is that recently 2 of our employees failed to uphold our standards of communicating with players. Their attacks on the community are unacceptable. As a result, they're no longer with the company. So as far as I can tell, you've got somebody that works for a developer. They've gone online, got a little bit angsty with members of the community. The employer is not like that at all. And I think this is where a lot of the misunderstanding comes in. We don't know what happened in that period. So we don't know what kind of dialogue she has with the employers, if any, or how constructive it was or whatever else. But regardless, 2 days later, she's fired. In my opinion, private sector, she's acted on Twitter in a way that I think that if you're representing your company in some way, you definitely shouldn't. And as much as I don't like to see people fired, and I would never call for somebody to be fired, the private enterprise that she works for has clearly deemed that she's acted out of line and they don't want her to work for them anymore, and they've decided to fire her. For me, end of story. This is not end of story, as you can imagine. The internet is fucking just goes ablaze about it. All the kind of usual fucking shitheads on every side of the equation have got their own opinion on it. People very celebratory that they managed to get somebody fired, which I think is fucking reprehensible. A lot of people crying about it in terms of what the fuck, what does this mean for the wider industry? Can people not speak out anymore? What if people are being harassed? And for me, particularly, like I said, I was fully prepared just to fucking ignore this one and just not pay any credence at all because I just don't care. I think it's a private matter between somebody and their employer. But in terms of fairly mainstream video game media, everybody seemed to completely be on one side of the argument, in terms of 1, she shouldn't have been fired. 2, they've treated her unfairly. 3, this is fully because she's a victim of some kind of harassment, sexism, whatever you want to call it. So she does an interview with Polygon, saying that the firing was unprofessional, which I think is really ironic considering the way that she spoke to people. And she accuses ArenaNet of just giving in to the mob. ArenaNet respond and say that they were actually closed on the day of the incident. They couldn't have acted straight away, but if they could have, they would have acted straight away. It's not that the kind of the kind of mob mentality built up to a point where there was too much pressure and they had to fire her. Just to add a little bit of extra context before we talk about it, a previous employer, Pazio Publishing, she left those on bad terms, saying that they asked her not to confront members of the community in certain ways, around sexism, etc. And fairly recently, like in May or something, she expressed happiness about the fact that Total Biscuit had passed away, and she said the kindest thing I can say is that I'm glad he's no longer around to keep doing harm. Since all of this has happened, she has come back on Twitter and is not apologetic, is very much kind of doubling down in terms of it was unfair dismissal and that she's taking a break, but she's not very happy about it, and basically just doubling down on everything she said. And my kind of takeaway is that if you look in general terms in terms of the reaction to this, you've got video game media on one side of it who are saying that she is completely untouchable and this is something that the employer has done wrong, and that she should still be in a job and also should continue behaving the way that she is. And then you've got pretty much, what I can tell, everybody that's outside of the gaming industry media, just normal people with like 200 followers, but not fucking troll people, but just like normal fucking people that just want to say something about what's going on. They all seem to understand that this was completely out of order, and the employer's got every right to kind of dismiss her based upon it. And it's that disconnect, I think, between video game media and what general people think that has really annoyed me. I would be absolutely fine if the likes of Giant Bomb talked about this and presented both sides and said, look, this is the way that she behaved. But at the same time, we think that there should be benefit of the doubt and she should still be in a job. They didn't do that at all. They even portrayed it as the guy that engaged her was rude and he was patronizing and that she was polite. And I think that's fucking completely 180 in terms of what happened. So I know that was a bit of a long one, but that's my position on it, and it's good to have all the facts because I think.
I'm agree with you. I listened to Giant Bomb and the Beastcast, and there were definite facts missing from both sides. Flighty.
So here's the thing about internet discourse is that discourse on the internet moves at the speed of the internet, which is to say very, very quickly. So for ArenaNet to say that there wasn't enough time for pressure to mount is ridiculous. Because discourse on the internet changes so quickly, and the unfortunate thing about Twitter in particular is that when you get wind of one side of an argument, it's difficult to kind of sift through all the threads and the tweeting and the subtweeting to kind of get a total picture of what's going on. So by the time the company like kind of got wind of this whole situation, there was in fact like a weird mob mentality on both sides going on. I do think that they were I think it was unethical of them to just kind of fire her without a vetting process. And also they fired what is this fella's name here? They fired somebody who defended her, like just for defending her, Peter Fries, which I would argue maybe was even more unethical. And I feel like with all of these things kind of accumulating together, it feels like they were being silenced and not really listened to. So that's basically their side. I mean, of course, the company has every right to fire them, but that doesn't mean that they're immune from industry and media criticism for doing so. So that was the risk that they took in doing that. Kind of like it was the risk that that young man took when he was replying to that woman's thread. Because discourse goes both ways. Like if you respond to somebody, especially on their own Twitter thread, you should always expect them to fire back if they disagree with you. So, and I'm reading over the thread now. So we're kind of missing a little bit of information here. In his subsequent tweets, he goes on to say, when you want the outcome to be the same across the board for all players' experiences, then yes, by design, you are extremely limited in how you can construct the personality of the PC. But if instead players are given the option to meaningfully express their character through branching dialogue options, which also aren't just on the checklist for blah, 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 then perhaps players would be more invested in the role-playing aspect of that particular Morpeg. Here's the thing. Jessica's been working in this industry for 10 years. She already knows all of that. She's been through like the process of looking at all of this stuff. Like he's not bringing in a hot take. This is shit that the industry has been looking at and has been analyzing for at least 10 years. And speaking as a woman who has worked in several STEM fields, women get told literally every single day how to do their job when they already know how to do it. And it builds up and it makes you mad. And you just get sick and tired of not only people in your own profession telling you how to do your own damn job every day, but you get tired of random dudes like everywhere who like supersede your expertise with their confidence. And the unfortunate thing is that women are socially conditioned to be quiet when they're mad, to kind of bottle it up, to smile when they're mad. And fuck that. And I think that's what Miss Price was doing there, because we're tired. We're all so tired, and we're just done being quiet about it. So.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think I'd be the first to admit that there's definitely an issue just with online communities in general. Interact. I think that it's a bit of a red herring. to just kind of frame it as women. I think fucking everybody gets harassed, regardless of their sex, the color of their skin. Obviously, especially if you're in kind of a high-profile role within video game communities, being either female or being, black, whatever it might be, potentially you're going to be kind of you're going to be ring fenced for a little bit more abuse than others. But regardless, I guess with this one, what I would point out is that, was this really the right fucking target for her animosity? Like, was this guy? I hate the word mansplaining, right? I think it's fucking Orwellian, weird speech that we've decided to invent in the last couple of years. But regardless, let's assume that is a thing. Was this guy mansplaining, or was he already an active part of this community and engaging with somebody that was openly putting out on Twitter? And we can say it's a personal Twitter. This was very much a public post of somebody that is fairly high profile within a very niche community online. She was openly putting herself out there. Did she not expect people to respond to that? And I would argue that maybe if somebody responded either who hadn't really thought it through or was being condescending, and maybe this is the way that I'm reading the tweets, but I don't think they're condescending at all. I think he's a little wordy. I think he's a fucking nerd. But he's trying to engage. And I don't think for a second that he thinks that this person has no experience or is less experienced than him. He's just engaging with somebody. Like, I think that there's a real trend right now to shut down conversation at the point where we deem that person hasn't got as much experience as others. As an example, mansplaining. So because a man is a man or doesn't have the female experience, he's got absolutely no input or feedback or say or commentary even in what a woman's experience might be. I prefer the times where we actually engage each other and we talk to each other about that. And yes, obviously experience comes into that, and the person with the more experience can call that out and say, look, I've got experience on this, but that's still a dialogue. And just to close that dialogue off at the point where we recognize that, look, I am the woman and therefore you're a man. I don't even know if this person is a man. Like, I couldn't tell you, because it's an online fucking avatar with some animated picture, and his or her name is completely, doesn't give away their gender. So as far as I'm concerned, the only thing she could potentially be annoyed at with this is that somebody has engaged a tweet that she openly put out there. And it could well be the case, if she is getting a lot of abuse online, or a lot of people kind of second guessing her, I would argue that this was a fucking terrible example of how to argue against that. And maybe she should find somebody that was being rude or was patronizing and argue against them and use them as an example to kind of improve the discourse, because all she's done here is just be rude to somebody that, as far as I can tell, was very polite. Like I said, nerdy, wordy.
I mean,
he wasn't being rude.
I think it was just
sorry, just real fast. So Deror is a man. He has a link to his YouTube page on his Twitter, and you can see very clearly that he's a fella. He's got his face on his YouTube.
I don't like to see him fly.
Here's the thing. Dudes don't get a say in what women's experiences are, because dudes aren't women. Dudes don't experience the world the way that women do, just like white people don't experience the world the way that black folks do. That's the same reason that, like, cis people don't get a say in what trans people experience, because
what do you mean by we don't get a say on experience? Because that doesn't make sense to me. I can't say what somebody's experience is. Only they can say what an experience is. But I can engage somebody, and I can empathize with somebody, or I could disagree with somebody. I could give them feedback on the way that they're behaving and suggest that if you do it this way, potentially you'd have a better outcome. And they're free to ignore it, and that's a dialogue. Why would we shut it down? And I think it's exactly what you've just outlined there, because somebody, and I'm going to take this personally, and I won't, I promise you, but I'm white, I'm a man, so you've just shut me down from you've just shut me down from certain conversations. I've got a long history of very close friends who are female, and I'd like to think that regardless of whether I can one for one relate to their experience, I can certainly sit down with them and use fucking basic empathy as a human, regardless of my fucking gender. Like, if whether I agree with it or not, we're in 2018, and the progressive mindset is that we should be tearing down gender walls. And as far as I can tell, this is the opposite example of putting them back up and saying, actually, you know what, you get back into your little ring fence, and you couldn't possibly comment on our experience. And I think that's the key word, I guess, is commentary. If I'm to speak to somebody that's a woman, that's a person of color, people put it, or whatever else, that doesn't mean that I'm trying to set an agenda for that. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to define. fucking engaging that person as a human, which I think is healthy. And that's the way we've done it for hundreds of thousands of years. And that's what this guy was doing. She put something out there on Twitter. It wasn't even a personal conversation in like a restaurant or something. This was something that she wrote on Twitter as a named developer of a video game and a prominent member of the community. And we can disagree on this. I don't think this is an example of mansplaining. I think this is somebody constructively adding to an argument or to a thought process. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does. The problem there, and I would like to kind of clarify, the thing is that people who are in social and numerical majorities think that they like get to like talk over people in social and numerical minorities, when the thing is that you need to listen. Talking isn't really helping because like we have our own experiences, and we don't need other people to like come in and tell us how to fix things. Like
I'm worried about talking over you. I think that'd be really ironic.
Well, like, the thing, like empathy is absolutely something that you need, but the important thing about empathy is listening. And when you come in there with your opinion as a majority, your opinion that gets listened to anyway by default, that's not really helping the conversation. You need to listen and then ask what you can do to make it better if it's a thing that you agree that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, so and I totally agree that there's definitely an issue. There's clearly a fucking issue, like I said, in terms of discourse in general, and I think you can filter down in the way that certain subsects of people interact. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fucking idiotic guys on the internet doing fucking idiotic things, but we're specifically talking about this example. So is this an example of somebody trying to talk over somebody else, or is this an example of somebody trying to engage in dialogue with somebody else, regardless of the gender?
Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. I think this is definitely somebody who and the thing is that I don't think he was being malicious. I don't think that he was like looking at the thread that she made. It's pretty evident in the first set of tweets that he made that he did want to engage in a dialogue. But the thing is that her experiences made her respond to that in a very specific way. And her experiences, like nobody can respond to things without their own experience and their own bias. So when she replied, "Thanks for trying to tell me what we do internally, my dude," he like went in, his next comment is, "You getting mad at my obvious attempt at creating dialogue and discussion with you instead of just replying that I'm wrong or otherwise correct me in my false assumptions is really just disheartening for me." And what he's doing there is he's asking her to coddle him. Be nice to me, even though you're having a bad day or a bad week or a bad career because you're being talked over by people in your industry. Like, I'm not saying that he was going in there and being like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna prove this cunt wrong, but you're right, they're on Twitter. He needs to be prepared for that. And it
so does she, I would argue.
But like she went in there and she was like, well, don't do that. Like, she wasn't saying sorry, let me read over this thread here again.
I feel like she snapped. It was like, but it builds up. It wasn't just that one tweet that she would have done that. I mean, she probably gets tweets like that every day, all day, and it's just she snapped at the wrong person, and then the internet found it and retweeted it, and then it snowballed from then on.
I actually have a quote from Price that she sent to Kotaku. I'll actually put the link in the chat here. Where is this article here? It was, Price told Kotaku in an email, a straw that broke the camel's back moment. Quote, "By the time that guy came along, I was so tired of having random people explain my job to me in company spaces where I had to just smile and nod, that it was like, no, not here, not in my space." And really, your Twitter page is your space. When you start a Twitter thread, that is your space. People can absolutely come in there, but you're going to get fired back on. And I think that guy got a little fragile in his response to her "thanks for trying to tell me what we do" tweet. Like, I get it, his feelings were hurt, but like, your feelings get hurt every day. You just need to get a thicker skin, dog.
Yeah, and again, I think that applies to both of them. But I guess what I would argue is the onus is completely on her. She's in this kind of. So what she's setting out is that she works for this video game development company. She's talking some inside baseball in terms of how we go about things. Somebody from the community comes in, makes a comment on it, and I agree. Like I said, he seems like a fucking nerd, and he's way too wordy.
He pretty much just said, like, have you tried branching dialogue paths? And she was like, yeah, I fucking have. I've been doing this for 10 years. Yeah, I have thought about that. And I think for me, it sounds like she snaps, but I also think that it sounds like ArenaNet don't have a harassment, like, they don't deal with it well. And that's something that has actually, since this has happened, there's quite a few I've read developers going to their staff saying, like, hey, you get any harassment, or you're just getting wound up on Twitter by people explaining things to you.
So
you know,
your Twitter app,
come to us. We'll help it. We'll support you, and you know, and work out how we move forward, and how it, you know, if you need a bit of time off or something like that, they can help her. And it sounds like ArenaNet didn't have that in place. They weren't helping the developers, and when she snapped, they were like, "Oh, see you later."
Well, they actually said that she had ever come to them and talked to them about it, the fact that she feels she's been harassed. I don't think she's a victim. I don't think she sees herself as a victim. So I don't necessarily want to bring harassment into this. I think that she's more than prepared to kind of fight her corner and wherever else. But what ArenaNet did say was that if any of their employees do feel harassed, obviously they could go to them. I don't think that she ever did. So why would they know about it? But what they will know, corporate standpoint, is that they've got somebody who is clearly working for the company and is talking about inside baseball stuff, and then totally fucking flips out on some members of the community. We can argue about how well these people interacted. I think both of them. I never want to speak to this guy ever in my life, and I certainly never want to speak to Jessica Price. Regardless, it's like, you know, it's an interaction. But from the company's point of view, and it isn't just this thread, it's a long history of the way that she's spoken to individuals within the community, of the attitudes that she carries. You know, she says at one point, I'm not on the clock now. I don't need to pretend to like you. I think, you know, I could be reading too much into this. What I see and what I'm reading from her character is that she probably doesn't have a lot of time for the general demographic of people that are playing this game, and she comes in with a lot of assumptions about what these people are. And like she said, she doesn't need to pretend that she likes them anymore. And I think anybody saying that online who's clearly being in some ways the face of a game of a development company, it's not going to go down well. And we can argue the toss on corporate responsibility and, you know, what corporations should and shouldn't be able to do. But I can tell you from personal experience that if I was to ever go on Twitter and start tweeting at customers of the company that I work for, in even a fraction of the way, in terms of animosity that she has, I would be leaving the very next day. They would fire me within 24 hours as well. So I think she's either been very naive.
They would have a process, though, wouldn't they?
Get away with stuff like that.
They would have a process. It sounds like this. I read that Jessica, her manager wasn't even in. He hadn't even come in before she was fired. There's a process
the company
usually.
Was closed on the kind of the day before, but
yeah,
but I get that. You know, in my company that wouldn't go down, but we're heavily. You know, there would probably be, you know, a suspension and then an investigation and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, U.S. employment laws being what they are, and probably the nature of this line of work, probably not going to be the case. I think a missing part of this is what that conversation sounded like. I very much doubt that this was a straight up, right, you've done this, you're fired. I imagine there was a bit of a dialogue, or at least there's been previous dialogue. And
she said there hadn't been.
Person and the chip that she fucking has on her shoulder and the way that she engages with people. If I was an employer, like, this would probably, you know, if we're talking about the straw that broke the camel's back, potentially from their perspective, this was as well. Like, she's got past history in terms of engaging with communities of companies that she's working for negatively, or at least in a way that they don't want her to. And she's done it again. And from my perspective, like I said, I'm never in this camp. And you see it on kind of both sides of the political spectrum, people trying to get people out of jobs. I think, like I said, I think that's fucking disgusting. But certainly I can understand from a corporate point of view why you wouldn't want somebody online, whether they're, you know, if somebody's getting harassed, that's one thing. At the end of the day, you're never going to fix it. You can't fix fucking Twitter at the end of the day. You know, there'd have to be some other kind of solution to that. I haven't seen any harassment. I think the the labeling of what harassment is and isn't is grey in this. I think some people would consider what this chap is saying as harassment. I definitely don't. I'm sure she's had harassment as a game developer. I'm sure lots of other game developers do, but I would be very surprised, if you want to bring kind of gender into it. I would be very surprised if, for instance, if this was the guy that led the No Man's Skies development team, and he came out and he started fucking raging on members of the community after the game bombed. I would be very surprised. And to go back to why
It'd be different kind of harassment, though, wouldn't it? Like women get different harassment, and I thought it was kind of just like a known fact that women get, harassed way more than men, especially in game
Have we got any
development.
examples of it being harassed that is different to men, or are we just making assumptions on that?
Wow.
I think you need to do your own research there, dog. Like there are plenty of examples of women being treated differently.
But we're talking about Jessica Price. So I'm not talking in general.
Honestly, I don't think I've seen that, but to be fair, I haven't really been mining for it. In that particular thread,
there's been a lot of light shed on this in the last 2 weeks, and I'm like nothing has been. I've been looking for that specifically, but considering the outlets that have commented on this, so your Kotakus, your Polygons, your Eurogamers, who are all extremely to the point of, and this is why I wanted to talk about this today, to the point of fault as far as I'm concerned, of not presenting the whole story. I've not seen a single tweet that they've managed to surface of any kind of kind of sexual harassment, name calling, anything like that. I get the impression that this isn't a person that necessarily is what fuels her. I think she's of a particular political persuasion, a very fired up political persuasion, and she's got her views, and more power to her. But I think the reality of the situation is that if you're representing a company online and you're throwing those views about, potentially that's gonna backfire on you.
I mean, harassment isn't as clear as just like name calling. It's been second guessed every single time, every single day. You suggest something, and there's men everywhere saying, "Oh well, no, I don't think you should be doing it like this."
Is it just men that do this? I'm struggling to.
In the tech jobs that I have had, yeah, it's just dudes doing it. Yeah. And the thing is that all you have to do is just listen to women in tech. Like the stories that they have are valid. Like we like I said before, we have our experiences. Like it's not some grand internet conspiracy that we're all trying to bring down the man or something like that. Like we're just telling our stories. So we do have chips on our shoulders, and it's because usually companies are never on our side when shit like this happens. It sounds like ArenaNet has never been on her side because a lot of us don't feel comfortable going to our companies or our HR departments to help us out, because then we're seen as troublemakers. Right off the bat, people will have their eyes on us, and then they'll come up, just like in this case, they will come up with any wet, paper thin excuse to fire us. So
they fired a man as well. This was a man getting.
This very much smells to me like he said he gave him an ultimatum, because he's apparently left on good.
But again, just to get I'm not going to sit here for an instant and say that it's not a harder digital life as a woman. Of course it is. Life in general is harder as a woman. Absolutely 100% that it is. In this specific example, and I don't think it's very useful just to kind of it's reverse sexism, really, isn't it? In just saying, well, men are doing this and men are doing that. But regardless, I think that in this specific example, I've seen no evidence that anybody has said anything fucking crazy to her leading up to this. And regardless, I think it's a really bad, like, why this person, like this person that's engaging it really constructively, why do it in this kind of way? Why not engage one of these people that is really like harassing it? I think she'd get a lot more sympathy for that. And regardless, like I said, it's not for me to say whether or not she should have got fired. To be honest, if it was up to me, like, I would rather that she didn't get fired for this, and it was just a kind of talking to in terms of, look, if either you needed to be able to handle yourself on Twitter a little bit better, or just get off there and carry on working on the game, or just don't present yourself as being associated with this game if you're going to talk to community members in this way. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He said the wrong thing to the wrong person, and everybody runs that risk every single day. It sucks when it happens, absolutely. And his feelings are valid. I'm not going to say his feelings aren't valid, because, you know, everybody's feelings are absolutely valid when it comes to stuff like this. But like he, or excuse me, it's it's a difficult situation to be in, because you can't, there are no winners here. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like ArenaNet like has no regard for its employees, and I think that kind of opens up to a much larger aspect of unethical practices in the game industry as a whole. There's no regulations happening there, because it's a relatively new industry, and nobody has really known how to handle things like this quite yet. And this whole controversy is kind of opening up more and more conversations about that, with the International Game Developers Association, which, as far as I can tell, is really the only organization that kind of holds companies accountable and kind of brings these things to light and wants to have discussions about how to fix it. But just as things are now, like it's kind of like here in the state of Wisconsin where I live, it's kind of like being a trans woman in the workplace, or really a trans person, period. You can be fired on the because you are trans and it's not illegal for you, and that's because there's no regulations there. So I think that's kind of being paralleled right now, because we are living in the information age, and we are like, a company has no right to tell a person that they should stay off of Twitter. Like, that's none of the company's business. And when you are off the clock, like, you get to do and say what you want. Like, you're a human being, and like, you don't have to like the people who you're making stuff for or who you're working for. It's like being a fast food employee and saying, like, you know, and firing somebody because they don't, you know, they don't like the people who they are serving when they're off the clock. Like, people on the whole are assholes, you know, and like, especially gamers, a lot of gamers are really entitled to like the content that they get, but they don't
How
realize
dare
that
you?
and the
So
thing
true.
is that there's no empathy there. Uh like, there are human beings making these games, and I think a lot of people kind of forget that, because like, you really only experience these people digitally without seeing their faces or knowing who they are. And I think it's really easy to kind of lose your empathy for
Mm.
people that you can't see or interact with.
I don't disagree with really anything said there, but what I would say is extremely naive to think that, and this isn't me calling you naive, but from her perspective, she's in her Twitter bio, she literally states that she's part of the ArenaNet narrative team, and clearly the things that she's talking about are about that game, that IP that belongs to that company. We can argue the philosophy about it all day, whether she's off the clock. It just doesn't work that way. If you're talking about work, especially if you're talking about work that you're doing, and certainly if you're name checking the company that you work for, and if you're engaging with customers of said company, it's just, unless you speak in a very particular way, it's just not going to go very well. And I'm very, very skeptical that this company doesn't have some kind of social media policy, because I know my company does, and the most backwards old school companies that you'll ever meet, and we've got a social media policy. And in essence, that social media policy is shut the fuck up, don't talk to customers, don't talk about work, which I'm very happy to do. But I get in her line of work that it's tech based. It lines up more with Twitter. You're going to want to talk about it. I think it's a real shame that she started that. Really, I reading through that, then I thought that was a really interesting thread. I'm interested in writing in games, and then for some nerds to comment on it in, I'm sorry, people seem to disagree with me about this. I think I'm in the majority, which I appreciate is apparently not you these days. But I think most people look at that and they see it as innocuous. This person was commenting in quite a verbose way, but there was nothing. I think you said there was nothing kind of insidious about it. And potentially it is the straw that broke the camel's back, and I get that argument. But if I was going to lend any credence to that, I would say that by now she would have apologized in some way for the way that she spoke to that particular person. I don't think she has. I think she's doubled down on this, and she felt that she was right to speak to that person in that way and to engage with the community in the way that she has. Let's move on slightly in terms of what do we think about her. And I think I know how you feel about this, Ben, but in terms of Flight, what do we think about her kind of basking in the fact that somebody just died of cancer? Do we think that is a nice thing to do? Is that a progressive thing to do?
Well, I think Total Biscuit was an asshole. I view death a lot differently than a lot of people, culturally speaking. I don't think death is a very like precious or sacred thing. So I'm not bothered when people say that they're glad that someone's dead, because they're dead. They don't care. I personally don't think that there's like, the ghost of Total Biscuit is gonna come back and like be super offended by what she said. Like,
Nobody's wife would be upset. I think that's the argument, isn't it?
but like Total Biscuit was definitely like a catalyst of a lot of abuse from Gamergate. He himself never did any abuse, but he gave a lot of people the agency to be abusive during Gamergate, and I think that's probably what she was referring to. I don't I don't think it's very polite to be, openly glad that someone's dead, but I also have been in a position where, I have been legitimately glad that someone is dead and not around anymore. So like I definitely see and appreciate both sides of that.
Mm. But I guess if you work for a video game company, prolific video game commenter dies, that's probably a different situation.
Well, he's not going to make any bad videos about her.
Yeah, I mean, like just because he was like a prolific video game commenter doesn't mean that he wasn't like an asshole. And like just because you're a big name in an industry doesn't make you immune to criticism like that.
I mean, she was calling him an asshole before he died. Then when he died, obviously he was in the news, so it gave her a bigger platform and people a bigger platform to say, hey, yeah, that guy's still an asshole even though he's dead, or he was an asshole. So it looks a lot worse, a lot more serious when so many people are like searching his name or he's in the news a lot. But yeah, I mean, she just hasn't changed her tune. She thought he was an asshole before, and then when he died, she was like, yep, he was an asshole.
She's consistent.
Yeah,
I like that.
And I mean, regarding my like last little thing, I think I really like this discussion we've had. I think we've had some really, probably way better than any of the podcasts I've listened to, and it's great having both sides. And I think you two kind of agree on a lot.
Yeah, I
just want both sides.
Very little what you said was like disagreeing with one another. And it was great getting both sides. Like the simple view that I got from it was that, yeah, in her years as a career developer, especially as a woman, she's been subject to extra, not necessarily harassment and abuse, but just kind of like doubting. And I read a Twitter thread by some other person, another female developer, who said like even like partners she's had have been like, oh, in that game, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And it's constantly been like told, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And it's pretty much what that dude had said was like, hey, do you fancy, why not try branching dialogue paths? And I think she snapped at him. I don't think what she said was right. I wouldn't have done that. But then again, I wasn't in her shoes. And then like the Twitter mob did come on and made it huge. If nobody had noticed it, she wouldn't have been fired. It's pretty obvious that. Or if very few, if it hadn't escalated to what it was, she wouldn't have been fired. Then the next day, if like ArenaNet should have just been like, okay, I'll call you in. Yeah, maybe even make an announcement. Yeah, they've been suspended pending an investigation. Investigate it, and she'll have hopefully said, yeah, look, I've been subject to this. I snapped. I apologize. And then they'd have been like, okay,
what you think happened, or
that's what should have happened.
Yeah.
And they should have given her the chance to calm down. Just chill, take a few days off, come back, and then we'll assess it. And but instead they just went really heavy-handed and sacked her. And then I think pretty much everybody working at ArenaNet's going to be like, oh shit, one wrong tweet, and we can get fired.
Yeah, just to play kind of devil's advocate on that a little bit, because I've heard that kind of narrative a lot, and I kind of get that. I definitely get the sense from reading about this person and kind of seeing the way that they've kind of presented themselves previously. Let's say that kind of sequence of events happens, and she gets into a room with like senior managers within that business, and they say, look, we get it, we agree with you, this person was being condescending, but you know what, you work for this company, you can't, this is just going to cause more harm. It's worth for you and for us, you just need to stop it. Does this strike you as the type of person that would say, okay, she in her Twitter bio, it literally says, I block often, I won't play Demir for you. She's clearly saying that, I'm up to be feisty. There's going to be a bit of a fight, a bit of a war of words if we get into it. Now, I just don't think that this person is necessarily going to say, yeah, okay, I get it, boss. I overreacted. You know what? I'll play cool on Twitter. I imagine that if that conversation did happen, that she doubled down on it, and then from that employer's point of view, how do you win with that? So this isn't an ideal situation. Like you said, nobody's won. But what do you do? So if this person, outside of you saying you can no longer go on Twitter, which no company really does that. That isn't the way that this stuff works. It's that just present yourself in a certain way or don't present us in a certain way, I guess. Outside of saying, okay, you're banned from Twitter, which won't happen. They're not her parents at the end of the day. If she can't give assurances that she's not going to fucking snap at a member of the community and create a fucking firestorm like she has, what choice do you have as an employer other than to cut her off and know that you're probably gonna get smacked around in the podcasts and
as Naroxen in the chat says
like that.
They didn't give her a chance. That chance wasn't given to her.
How many chances does she? Again,
the thing is, she said that she'd never.
Like I said, this person left the previous.
But
company that she worked for in
she has
very
stated that she's.
I very much doubt that however long she's worked for this company, I doubt that she's been.
She stated this is the first time she's had like any disciplinary taken against her. Like this is the first time ever for her in that company.
I'm curious as to why the company didn't assess the situation as such. Why did she react that way? What's going on in her life that made her feel this way? Why did she snap at someone like this? What can we as a company do differently to make her job, less stressful? What are we doing wrong as a company? Because she said specifically that it's her job that makes her that made her respond that way, and it could be her job that makes her dislike the community that way. So it sounds like the company just showed no empathy, basically. Like they're not interested in the well-being of their employees. They're interested in the well-being of their reputation, and I feel like dealing with her well-being would have increased their positive reputation, because not a lot of companies do shit like that, and I think the video game industry would be a really good place to kind of start, like, set a precedent for companies giving a shit about their employees.
I feel like in the UK you get that a lot more.
Way different laws, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely,
again, maybe I'm misreading this person. I'd be very surprised if she would be comfortable with that company coming out and saying, "Oh, she's having a bad day, guys. She's got a lot going on. The job's really stressful. Sorry, she had a bad day. She's just going to carry on now." I don't think she would like that, based on what I've seen and the way, again, that she kind of carries herself. She's very strong-willed, has clearly very kind of set opinions on this very particular topic of people kind of countering her and giving suggestions and stuff like that. Like I said earlier, I don't think she sees herself as a victim, and I think for that, and I agree with what you've said. And to be honest, in the company that I work for, that's pretty much the route that it would go. I think in the kind of cutthroat world of video game development in the United States of America, the company's got no onus to do that. But let's assume that they do. Companies are made up of people. There's going to be some kind of empathy there. Like I said, I find it difficult to envisage a situation where they could both make amends with the community has been spoken to, because let's face it, like, not everybody's a fucking. I get that a lot of these people are male, but we're not all evil, I promise you. And I'm sure a lot of these people were genuinely kind of feeling a bit shit about the fact that somebody that worked for this company spoke to somebody this way when they were just trying to kind of have their say and give a bit of feedback or have a kind of dialogue. I find it difficult to understand how they could marry those two and get the community back on side, and also let Jessica Price feel that she's been allowed to blow off steam in the way that she feels that she should be allowed to. I just don't see those two marrying up, and I think that was the predicament that they found themselves. And my assumption is that I reckon there's probably been things previously that she's probably disagreed with kind of management on. Like I said, she's got a long history of feeling this way, and whether we agree or disagree in terms of how she feels about this stuff, I can tell you how a corporate entity would feel about it, and it's not very positive. So yeah. But to go back to my original point, like I said, I'm not here to she should get fired or not. She seems extremely fucking intelligent. I'm sure she's great at her job. I'd rather be in a position that she should be in. But for me, this issue stems from the way that this was presented within within games media, I fucking cringed at every single outlet that talked about this. There's been none of the nuance. It is all completely just. I totally get the arguments about women in the industry and just women in general being prone to far more abuse than guys is something that I'm grateful for every day, that I don't have to go through that stuff. But for the media to, in my mind, patronize women and just pretend that they're complete and utter victims and not present the whole argument, and then to patronize me as a listener to assume that I'm not going to want the full story, or that I couldn't have the full story and come to my own conclusion about it, really fucking pissed me off. There we go.
Blighty, final say. I think. God, it's 12:15.
Oh, well, I mean, I can't. I think I'm in a very, very specific camp here, especially as somebody who has a lot of experience as a woman in tech and kind of as a woman of color in the general world. Like, I see a lot of patterns, and the patterns do not make me comfortable or happy. So I definitely, I sympathize with her more than I sympathize with the company. And I think that regardless of anything that happened, I'm glad that this did happen, because people are having more conversations about how to change how employees are treated in the industry. And it's unfortunate that the dude got snapped on, and it's unfortunate that she got fired. They were both kind of like that was just the cause and effect of everything that happened. But I am glad that it's opening up a lot of these conversations. So I'm really interested to see where this goes.
Yeah. All right.
Agreed.
Great. Yeah, that was a lot. That was really interesting. I'm going to put that as a separate video, I think, on YouTube as well, to for people that want to jump to it, because it's something that's definitely captured the attention of people in the industry and people who play games and all that. So it's now 12:15. I've got to get up in less than 7 hours. So, Jordan, how do we find you?
Let me tell you about this, Jessica.
Oh God. We'll have a Total Biscuit special next week.
I'm Immortan Jordan on Twitter.
Go to Twitter and snap at Jordan.
Yeah.
Or please do. I'm a male. I deserve it.
And Flighty, how do we find you?
Please find me at twitch.tv/thatflightybroad. I will be streaming in about 2 hours and 45 minutes. I will be continuing playing Echo. So come watch that awesome game with me and hang out and be my friends.
Excellent. And if you already you probably found me already, BiggusBennus on everything except Twitter. I'm a BiggusBennus1 on there. That twat still hasn't tweeted since 2010.
we need to find him.
I need to find him. Yeah. All right. Well, yep. Thanks. Catch us on youtube.com/BiggusBennus or clickclickplay.com. Next week we'll have Twitch Play, the Twitch streaming special brother of this. So we'll see Jordan in 2 weeks. Flighty, see you next week.
Oh, real fast, Ben.
Yeah.
Boy butter. Slather your gimp with it.
I think that's a perfect time to end it. Catch you guys later. Stick around. We'll send a host over. And thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.